Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile 1 discussion. Today, Granny Games dropped some unexpected big news. They're running a Legacy of Phrecia event on the 29th of January. Legacy of Phrecia, for those of you that didn't play the original one, it's an event that has a number of potential what-if rule sets. Things that don't exist in Path of Exile, but that were things that got developed quite some way before eventually getting scrapped. One of them is an entirely different set of Ascendancies. So there's going to be 19 completely different Ascendancies to explore. These are known, but there will also be a balance pass, because the last time Legacy of Phrecia existed, it was very much dominant the Ancestral Commander, which is kind of Juggernaut but better. And at the same time, a lot of things that were almost good enough but not quite there, like the Gambler Ascendancy, these just didn't see very much play because you had something that was broken, that was an alternative. Anyway, that's one of the things that's going to be changing. The second one that's important as well is that the Atlas is completely replaced with a system called idols. Now, these are essentially jewels for your Atlas. They can't be crafted through normal currency. They can be recombinated with each other, and doing so generally costs quite a bit of gold. So this is a massive, massive gold sink in order to get really going. On top of this, you'll get an idol as a 50% drop from map bosses, and on top of that, they're added to the core loot pool, and they're not that rare, but they're also not that common. These idols are going to be something that you can then recombinate together to get something perfect, and they replace a lot of the effects on the Atlas. Broadly speaking though, what they let you do, if you're willing to hyper-specialize, they will allow you to juice things further than is possible in the normal game. Now, the last time that the Legacy of Phrecia event was run, they were completely and utterly broken. There was one of these modifiers for rogue idols that stacked with itself in a counterintuitive and completely busted way. If you got 4 of these, which was the most that you could fit into your idol window, then you were getting an enormous amount of rogue exiles in pretty much every map. And this ended up just completely dominating the trade league economy. You had inflation that looked like Path of Exile 2's current league, the Fate of the Vaal, potentially even more so. You had people who were personally looting double-digit figures of mirrors throughout the event, but this was in content that was only available to top-end power gamers. Anyways, that is completely removed, so it won't be as hyperinflationary as it was in the past, but do expect this to be a fairly broken economy. And I think for that reason, Grinding Gear Games have decided they want this to be a shorter event, and it's going to run 3 weeks. Ultimately, in my mind at least, Legacy of Phrecia doesn't have as much staying power as the core Atlas does, and so this is a sensible choice on their part. One other thing that's important to note here, they're saying here standard and hardcore solo self-bound versions available. The precise wording they choose here might be a mistake. This precise wording indicates that there are only 2 choices. You can either have the basic rule set where both the solo self-bound and the hardcore rule sets are turned off, or you can have both of them turned on, but you can't just mix and match and take exactly one of them. I expect that if this is intended, it will change, because there will definitely be a loud outcry from people who prefer having exactly one of those hard mode rule sets on. Most of the time, that will be the solo self-found and softcore players, because that's a modest section of the player base. The other thing of note is that this event is not voided. Characters that are created in it can transfer across to the main Keepers League. However, in doing so, they will be forced to completely reset their Ascendancy points, because the Ascendancies that exist in Legacy of Phrecia do not exist in the base game. There's going to be a couple of other changes as well though. Every single zone is going to have a random number of map modifiers. This number is going to scale up with area level, and this is basically going to be like cartography scarabs of risk that apply everywhere in the game. However, a number of map modifiers are being removed because they're ones that end up playing pretty badly there. So for instance, you're not likely to see a zone that has Reflect as a random mod, but you might see some reasonably nasty ones, such as 109% of physical damage added as extra fire, or nastier things again, like monsters penetrate elemental resistances at X level. We'll have to get the exact details of what's available in those mods. We don't know all of the details there, but presumably these are going to provide quantity, rarity, and pack size bonuses, just like a normal map mod does. At least that is the way that I'm reading this. Also, a number of bosses are getting buffed. Campaign bosses, as well as some pinnacle bosses, have developed a few new mechanics for you to overcome. Now, some of you may have played with the Gauntlet rule set, either in the actual Gauntlet itself, where it's only in hardcore solo self-found, or potentially during the May events last year, where these were available to play around with. These modifiers may also show up, but they may be something else, or they may be toned down versions of those Gauntlet mods. Really interesting ones that existed in that. Act 4 and Act 9, bosses had various aspects of the Maven interfering with players, which really made those fights a lot harder. On top of this, all unique monsters will enrage on low life. All of this is pointing to a very, very dangerous world to elect to play hardcore in. But if you want hardcore challenge, well, that's going to be it. On top of this, they're throwing away a few mystery boxes here as prizes. If you're interested in getting free mystery boxes there, you get one at level 50, a second one at level 90. As always, with every time they run one of these mystery box promos, these are not worth playing for unless the event sounds like fun. But if the event sounds like fun, these are going to be an awesome little bonus. There's a bunch of FAQs here, and probably the most important one, the one that I'm really expecting, will be, will the Legacy of Phrecia event run on all platforms? Yes, finally this is something that is available for our console friends, as well as for everyone else that's playing on PC. On top of this, there's a number of other little questions here. There's the technicalities of how you create a character in this event that is different from how you would create characters for a normal league. So you can have a look at that if you're not familiar with event leagues. And on top of that, there's just a couple of other very basic questions. Can I play my existing character? No, you're going to need to make something new. Can I change my Ascendancy class during the event? Yes, you can. And will I get multiple mystery boxes if I play the campaign multiple times? No, just one for reaching level 50 once, one for reaching level 90 once, and there's no duplication of each of those reward levels. Another thing that's likely to come up as an FAQ, but that Grinding Gear Games haven't said here, I can answer this one from past knowledge with the Phrecia events, and that is what happens to Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh Jewels. Forbidden Flame and Flesh Jewels still exist, and they will provide base game Ascendancies. So for instance, the Witch will have access to the core Elementalist Ascendancies, such as Mastermind of Discord. They will exist. There will be no Forbidden Flame or Forbidden Flesh for the new Ascendancies, and this is done for a pretty good reason. Some of the new Ascendancies in the Phrecia event have 6 and 8 point nodes. So those are ones that you need to invest everything into a particular choice in your Ascendancy in order to get. And as a result, they're not something that would be particularly reasonable to have available through other means. On top of that, there are a couple of Ascendancies, and here I'm particularly thinking of the Gambler Ascendancy. We've got very powerful upside nodes as 4-pointers, but the 2-pointer leading to them is neutral or even negative in nature. So lots of interesting things to play around with when it comes to builds here, and the thing I think I'm looking forward to the most here is that they are doing a balanced pass over some of the things related to the Ascendancies. And this one's going to be important because in the past, it really was play Ancestral Commander or don't bother. Ancestral Commander was just so much better than everything else, and that's not going to be the case here. The other thing that's going to be big, of course, is that we now have asynchronous trade, and this is probably one of the areas that's going to shine the brightest. Asynchronous trade means that collecting a set of idols that is cohesive is going to be a lot easier than it was in the past time that Phrecia went up, but it also means that anything that gets hyped by a particular streamer is going to absolutely explode in price when it comes to those idols. So expect pricing to be extremely, extremely volatile, expect it to go all over the place, but that's just the way that asynchronous trade works. Less trade friction means larger price swings. That's going to be a little bit of fun. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. May Valobs have interesting results, and the Legacy of Phrecia event is coming in just a week and a bit.